Okay, so I have two videos I have to make. I have to put the word out there. I haven't made one in a very long time, and it's time to put these videos out there. One video, and this is right off the cuff, like, so forgive me for not being able to just articulate this in a very concise way. I'm going to try my best to just explain my situation to those out there, and I just know that I have to put the video out there. I don't. It has nothing. Maybe there might be some religious implications behind it. I'm not exactly sure, but I feel like it's very important that I share my story. So one day I was on the subway. It was a very long day, tired and all. I overslept. I made it to the last stop on, I don't remember exactly, I think the Orange Line. I don't know which train I was on. So I got to the last stop, and suddenly, and so I'm dozing off. My foot is on my bag. My bag is on the chair. Now, New York City has a rule, I guess, where you can't put your foot on the chair or else you will be fined, whatever have you. Not here nor there, not important. So my foot's there, and so I wake up, and then there's two cops standing, hovering over me. And for anyone waking up to being put in a situation, predicament, a high intense situation, predicament right off the bat, you're not going to. Uh, you're probably not going to know how to react to the situation. So for me, initially, I was just very friendly about the situation. I woke up, I'm like, all right, so I'm like still sort of out of it. So where are you going? And so I'm like, I'm going back to Manhattan. Um, Pretty much, I thought that he or the both of the officers were there just to be informative and help me, given that it's clear that I missed my stop. Um, Anyways, long story short, they continued to just the junior one was the one asking the questions initially. He asked me where I'm going, this, that, and the other. He started asking me all these questions, right? And then it got to the point where I realized that they weren't just asking me questions just for asking questions' sake for my own protection, but more importantly, now here comes interrogation. Here comes uh, provocation. Um, so they got to the point where it went from asking questions to for an ID to verifying this to this, that, and the other, all these things without telling me what is the whole purpose behind why all of this is happening. And I realized something that happens almost too often with cops, where especially the ones, I don't know if they. This is my first run in with one, but I realized something that may occur far more than people uh, would know, where you are provoked, you are interrogated, you are put in harassing situations without any provocation and without there being any disclosure as to why these things are occurring, what is the purpose. So that occurred, and I just started to get a little bit more annoyed as time progressed, and I realized then maybe like a few minutes in, they finally decided, oh, well, we're stopping you because of the fact that you had your foot on the chair. My foot was on one chair. Like I said, it was on the my bag was on the chair. My foot was on my bag, and so the senior officer finally spoke up after I realized. I'm like, say, after I spoke up and I said, I'm being abused here. This is like an abusive situation. Why are you continuing to ask me questions? I provided the information that you asked, and that's to be sufficed. Why are you still asking me more questions? And then finally, he acknowledged the fact that he's like, and of course they denied it. There's no abuse going on here. There's no harassing. There's nothing. Da, da, da. And then he finally acknowledged, "Oh, we're stopping you for this." So if you're stopping me because of the fact that my foot was on the bench or on the thing, and there's a citation or a violation for that, okay, you come up to me and you tell me that, and then let that be the end of it. Don't turn this situation into something more than it needs to be. And um, by doing all of that 5 minutes of extra, which was not needed, you tell me what you're stopping me for. You could fast forward to the point where you tell me what you're stopping me for. You give the violation, and you go your way, and I go mine. That did not occur. There was 5 minutes of provocation. There's 5 minutes of harassing. There's 5 minutes of interrogation, which was just bizarre, because when you get my ID and you ask for my personal information, you get the confirmation of this information via the computer system that you guys call in. You have all this information there. So me having to explain myself, to me having to do all this stuff, and then on top of that, you're already going to get verified this information. It's like, why are you doing all of this? This is making no sense. And I was just definitely in a funky situation, if you may ask. And in that moment, the religious aspect of it, initially, like, immediately, I was like, okay. I asked God, I'm like, why am I in this situation? And I was not happy about being in that situation. I was not happy about being in that predicament. But I wasn't fearful. I wasn't afraid of these quote unquote cops. This junior one and this senior one, who pretty much, like I said, was allowing the abuse slash harassment to occur. And I'm just saying to myself, I couldn't imagine the type of unlawful behavior these cops do on a daily basis, solely based on the fact of my own personal interaction with them. And people sometimes wonder why these little things turn into something else, and automatically, everyone automatically assumes that one's supposed to be submissive to the cop and just follow everything he says and does everything he says, and then everything's supposed to be okay. But hold up, what you're not realizing and what you're not understanding is the fact that these cops sometimes overstep their boundaries. They sometimes abuse their power. They sometimes interrogate and ask more questions than need be. They sometimes do things that are unlawful and should not be occurring, when it's not even pertinent to why they are stopping the person. And when you speak up against this, as Jesus spoke up against any type of abuse and violation, anytime, you have to speak up. This is, and I just read, I'm on the scripture of Matthew. What is this? This is Matthew 10, 26. Don't be afraid of anyone. Don't be afraid of anyone. So guess what? I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to be putting myself in a situation where you, because of your ignorance, you're going, and you see me being a black man, assume all these things and think that, oh, I'm going to be uneducated. I'm minding my own business, just sitting there by myself. But by you assuming all these things, interrogating me, asking me all these questions that are not pertinent to my foot being on my bag, which is on the chair, it just confirms that this is the type of stuff that people have to do on a daily, the abuse that people have to go through on a daily basis. And there definitely needs to be a call for some sort of regulation and some a better procedure, a better way of handling these type of situations, because it's definitely, it feels dirty, it feels ridiculous on how the approach occurs and how they handle these situations. Some cops now, don't get me wrong, they, I'm sure, are a lot more experienced, and therefore their approach is different. They realize when they're in a threatening situation and when they're not. High probability, two people standing up, hovering over you, it doesn't matter the color, white, black, purple, green, if they're hovering over you, you know that you're in the submissive position. You're in the least power position. They have two guns, two white men standing over me. I'm just waking up. Can you imagine the situation? This was not a good one. So I said that to say this. When it's all said and done, it doesn't matter if there's two white men with guns standing over you, interrogating you, putting you in a situation that you don't want to be in. You have to speak up. Matthew 10:26, Do not be afraid of anyone. And guess what? I'm not going to be afraid of anyone. And the reality is, anybody else being in a situation like that, I'm sure it could have escalated into something more. Before you know it, the person's either arrested, injured, hurt by that cop, and somehow the cop can now justify abusing that person. But they don't know what occurred what occurred to get that situation escalated to that point. These cops abuse their power. They go over what they're supposed to do, meaning that I'm sure that's not protocol to go in a situation and then not only completely wake somebody up to the point where they're like completely shocked, and then when they or start answering all your questions, you come with more questions, all of which are not even pertinent to the reason for stopping the person. It's just a disgusting situation, and I am certain that a white a white young girl would not have to go through what I went through that night. And I just need to put it out there. There was something on my heart that spoke to me, that I need I needed people to know that this abuse occurs on all sorts of levels. It doesn't matter who you are, who you think you can be abused by someone in a heartbeat. But at the end of the day, once you're a follower of God, you and my connection, I'm telling you, immediately when this was occurring, my heart, my soul, my spirit was completely like, what is going on? And I'm talking in the spirit. While this is happening, I'm already speaking in the spirit. What is going on? I'm not happy in the situation. I'm not. It was a sense of like annoyance for me. Um, but I think a part of it is just acknowledging that this situation should not be occurring. And many times, there's been a few times, there's been like very weird things happening, very weird people coming into my space, and I speak in the spirit exactly what how I feel about the situation, and my genuine honest feeling towards the person and the spirit or whatever it is that's in my space. And more times than I'm speaking out against it, and before you know it, without me doing and or saying anything, the situation de-escalates itself. And that's exactly what occurred as soon as I finished speaking in the spirit against these two cops that were, I felt as though it was escalating to the point where they think that they were gonna, I don't know what the plans were, so it's just a very, and let me put it, let me make sure it's very clear. It's at 3 o'clock in the morning. This was at 3 o'clock in the morning, meaning that the subway was pretty much scarce with like 2 to 3 people in there. So there's not really anyone in there. So if, not saying that what I was doing, it was a violation. That's not so much of a question. My foot was not sprawled on all the benches. It was on one, on my bag, which was on the chair. So I understand the violation. However, what was problematic for me was the approach, and not only the approach, the harassment and the abuse, and then more importantly, how they turned something so simple as a citation for putting a foot on a chair to writing out something where my foot was spread across all the benches, which is a lie, and then turning that into something where they're interrogating you, asking you, provoking you to the point where someone who has less patience could turn a situation like that into a violent one where they can be abused, arrested, injured, even or killed just for something as simple as a citation. And then somehow in the news they will portray it as the cop was the good guy. The cop was defending himself because guess what? That's a black man. So the black man is always wrong. And this is what people are taught. But I tell you something, God, and I said this before, I said it in that moment, that man, the senior one, saw what was happening and he allowed it to occur. And I know that he's going to get his. And I'm not putting anything on, I'm not bringing any harm his way. I'm not causing it. I'm not speaking. But I know that the way things work. I don't believe in this whole thing of karma, but I know that when you are doing wrong and you see abusive things happening, you don't speak out against it, you will get yours. That's just how life works. So I am certain that that day will come when he, this man who abused me in that situation, this situation, in the end, he will have to speak up. He will have to explain what he did. He will have to speak up and explain exactly why he did what he did, why he justified his actions. Because when you start justifying the foolish behavior and not acknowledge when wrong is wrong, this is when you're working for darkness and there's no light there. Not here nor there. I need to put the story out there. The abuse is real, and I don't know if this is a precursor to how things are going to start unfolding in New York City, where people are being abused, and eventually they're going to get to the point where they're not going to allow the abuse to happen anymore. But I needed to put this my abusive story by at the hands of two New York City cops out there. So, not here nor there. God bless. Take care.